What if foreign powers were secretly trying to influence the leader of the free world? We've seen this in 2016. Russian interference made headlines across the globe. And now in 2024, the question arises again. Why would Russia want a particular candidate to win? Tonight, we will uncover the motivations, the methods, and the sociological effects behind this interference. From geopolitical strategy to propaganda campaigns on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, the ones that we're streaming on now, let's take a look into Russia's playbook for influencing elections and its impacts. All right. So, kind of setting the context for 2024. Before we get into this, I would like to ask you to try to remove the candidate, remove the face and name and the associations as we get into this, because I know that those on the right, many of your initial reactions will be, how can my guy be associated with something we stand so fervently against? The truth is, his personal intentions are not to harm the US, but his intentions benefit those whose intentions are aligned against the US, and there's a difference, but a point you may want to consider. So, the 2024 US presidential election is taking place against a backdrop of heightened global tensions. We got the Russian war in Ukraine, the US cultural divide, NATO's expansion, and continued economic, sanctions that have made the stakes higher than ever. So with these tensions, Russia has clear incentives to influence US leadership. A candidate more aligned with their goals could mean relief from sanctions, reduced military aid to Ukraine, or even weakened NATO commitments. So, Russia's motivations, they have a great deal. So why would they back a specific candidate? Let's take a look. First, there is foreign policy, right? Russia seeks the US leader who's skeptical of NATO and willing to negotiate sanctions relief. A second, economic factors. We also had the annexation of Crimea and the invasion of Ukraine that has devastated Russia's economy. A favorable US administration could ease that burden. Propaganda influence in 2024. But how does Russia's influence elections without being caught? The answer lies in propaganda, which is my personal interest and some education that I have in. It's also primarily social interaction, and that's where it's at. So, I'm going to open up a little PowerPoint that I got here and demonstrate it. So, Russian interference. We've seen this in 2016 with the US presidential election. So, some details on this. There were Russian operatives, including the Internet Research Agency, which launched a coordinated disinformation campaign on social media to sow discord and influence voter preferences. The methods that they used for this: fake social media accounts, paid ads, and hacking of Democratic National Committees' emails. And the impacts to this was intelligence reports confirmed that Russia's aim was to boost Trump chances and undermine Hillary Clinton's. In 2017, the U.S. intelligence agencies, the CIA, NSA, and FBI, they released a report confirming Russia's role in the election interference. And this followed up with the Mueller investigation that so many heard about, focusing on Russian interference and potential collusion. In 2018, we've seen more. Russian actors targeted the U.S. midterms by spreading disinformation and attempting to breach voter databases. They focus on divisive social issues like immigration and gun rights. Our response was social media platforms increased efforts to identify and remove fake accounts that were linked to Russia. That is one thing that Russia's very good at, propaganda. In the 2020 US presidential election, they ratcheted it up a bit. So they started more disinformation campaigns. They targeted Joe Biden in particular with narratives about corruption and focusing on eroding trust in the election process. They also induced some new tactics like use of artificial intelligence to create convincing fake accounts and deepfakes. Our response was US cybersecurity agencies established new protocols to protect voter data. In 2021, after it, Russian narratives promoted election fraud theories to delegitimize the Biden administration. We all heard about that and still hear about it now. Their methods were coordinated campaigns across YouTube, Facebook, and fringe platforms like Parler. And then you had some wonderful content creators jump into that, especially in the future, such as today. And we're going to take more of a look at that on Thursday. In 2022, we got Ukraine, as we all know, and the propaganda that followed with it. Russian state-sponsored media and troll farms flood the Western social media with misinformation about the war in Ukraine. Their focus was to blame NATO and the West for the conflict, promote narratives justifying Russia's actions. Our response, we increased sanctions against Russia and removal of state media accounts on major platforms. In 2023 through 2024, we get the good stuff. Details. The Russian interference the Russian interference reaches new levels of sophistication with the deepfake videos and AI generated propaganda. The goals: support candidates perceived as favorable to Russia's geopolitical interests, undermine trust in election integrity. Our response again was with the US cybersecurity agencies. Identity and counteract some threats, but significant damage to public trust occurs and still does. And here's some sources that I used for that information. And hi to your fave Leanna. I got about 4 different chats going on now, and the primary one that is going on is through TikTok. I can only observe so many at one time, so I appreciate your patience to those that I haven't interacted with. And I appreciate everybody that's watching, especially on TikTok. Rock on. I had a feeling that people on TikTok might want to watch something different, like something of substance, something that, well, we all know is different from what we usually see. Moving forward, that's another topic. So, moving forward from that, sorry, I got to get a few things ready here. And just kind of concluding that thought and that information, whenever you come to like a point where you're going to start making allegations, one of the common things that occurs in law, at least that I've experienced or observed, is you create a timeline of events, because that timeline of events, that demonstrates, right? It demonstrates intention. And you get an idea of what's going on. It's like a story, right? A story of events that leads to an end. It tells a ton. Always does. And to those on TikTok, since there's so many going on, if you wouldn't mind sharing this, I would appreciate it. That would be awesome. And thanks for all your support. Now, so this is what I really love, the sociological effects of Russian interference. This is the good stuff. Let's talk about the deeper impacts of this interference, how it affects society itself. In other words, the sociological concepts. We'll review them and then look at how to apply them. Some primary points I want to be held in mind and carry throughout the following presentation is that Russian propaganda deepens division by amplifying extreme views, making it harder for Americans to find common ground. Social media algorithms prioritize content that aligns with users' beliefs, trapping them in cycles of reinforcement and furthering division. Third, distrust in institutions. By spreading this disinformation about election integrity, Russia undermines confidence in democracy itself. And what I want to spread or get into is to focus on the intentions of others. So, let's take a look at this stuff. Boom. There it is. One sec. All right. Getting to that good stuff. Conceptual application. Get it, bro. I'm all over it, man. All right. Group polarization. This is a big one. So, group polarization, it occurs when individuals in a group adopt more extreme views after discussing an issue collectively. We can see this a lot, like in certain chat rooms on certain topics, things like that. So, Russian disinformation campaigns, they often target divisive social and political issues. For example, race, immigration, gun rights, everything we hear about now and everything that's going on. And they do it by amplifying extreme narratives on both sides. And it deepens divisions within our society, making it easier to manipulate public opinion and undermine our trust in democracy. Got a good example for this. InfoWars. Everybody's conspiracy, primary form, and way to get content if that is your thing. And then we got like extreme right political commentary, and I know you've heard me mainly talk about the right, but trust me, and I think you all know it's also on the left, those extreme views. I guess someone's got to say them. This one I like a lot. So, social identity theory. People derive part of these self-concepts from their membership in social groups and tend to favor in-group members while discriminating against out-groups. This is a sad but true fact. Often, if you are part of something, like let's say someone, take myself for example, I have epilepsy. I have that in-group of people with epilepsy where they understand my experience and others can't. We can discuss certain things and topics because we share a similar experience in life and we can relate to that, right? And if, let's say, other people who, other people can't relate quite as well. And I think that's understandable, right? We all have that in our lives, certain things, certain topics, and it's okay. I think it's cool. I'm completely aware that I can't relate with certain things, and that's okay. And I think that's something that we could all take a moment to understand quite a bit, actually. But there would be specific topics that I think we would be much more in pro of, right? So, for example, there's been discussion of no longer covering individuals with pre-existing health conditions. I, as an individual who that could affect a great deal, will be more emotionally invested in that said topic. So, the application of this, Russian propaganda, it exploits this identity politics, encouraging an us versus them mentality. And we get that with content that targets specific groups, for example, racial minorities, conservatives, liberals, and leverages this social identity to create conflict and erode societal cohesion. And there is a good example, right? You always hear, oh, they're progressive, they're liberal, they're conservative, blah, blah, blah. There's a label, there's an identity associated with it. And then, of course, we associate certain beliefs with that identity. And I had also another example, which was dumb YouTubers that definitely promote this, such as Tim Pool, Lauren Shen, Benny Johnson, Dave Rubin, and I would say another one who I've just never been a fan of is Chank. Can't pronounce his last name, but I think you probably know who I'm talking about. He's been in that sphere for a long time. For a long time. He was cool about like a decade ago. Another good one, media framing effect. This is basically where I could record an event and tell any type of story that I wanted. So, the way media presents an issue influences how people perceive and interpret it, right? The application of this is Russia's use of media platforms like YouTube and Facebook. It involves framing issues in a way that favors their desired narratives. For example, portraying political candidates as corrupt or morally flawed can shape voter attitudes, even if the information is misleading. And it makes a difference. You get enough people seeing the same thing in the same way, they're all in agreement. They're like, all right, it's all good. Let's hop on that bandwagon. And just another, like, more descriptive example, someone shoots someone, right? Who's the victim? Who is the victim? Is it the individual who got shot, or is it the other individual who may have been doing it in self-defense? How do you perceive it? It's all about how you portray it, unless you were there. So, the spiral of silence. Big one. I think that we all experience this either on the job or possibly at a family event that you may be having right now. And this is individuals are less likely to express their opinion if they perceive their views as being in the minority due to fear of social isolation. This application with Russia is disinformation campaigns. It can create the illusion of widespread consensus around false narratives. This effect silences dissenting opinions, like at the table while you're eating, and it further amplifies the influence of the propaganda. And we got different things that a lot of people seem to disagree upon. And that's, like the whole you woke thing, don't rock the boat. You got the holidays, like I mentioned. The comments like pick your battles, personal issues, just keep quiet, that kind of stuff. Some have the gift of keeping quiet. I'm really bad at it, still working on it. I don't know if I want to work on it though that much. I think it's just part of who I am. But that's another topic. So we got cognitive dissonance. And this is a big one, especially one-on-one. So cognitive dissonance occurs when individuals experience psychological discomfort from holding conflicting beliefs or attitudes. The application of this, propaganda campaigns, they intentionally create this conflicting narrative. It causes people to question the credibility of information sources, for example, the government, media, or political parties. And this confusion can lead individuals to disengage from political participation altogether. And this is a really powerful one. I would say, in particular, like when you can identify a contrast between behaviors and beliefs, right? If you are doing something that contradicts a value that you have, maybe you're aware of it, maybe you're not. If you're not aware of it and you state these beliefs and someone calls you on it, well, you're going to start questioning things, right? Because it doesn't align with your values. And that one really throws a lot of people off. Understandably so. I think we've all gone through that. The echo chamber effect. An echo chamber It's a situation where individuals are exposed primarily to information that aligns with their existing beliefs, reinforcing those beliefs. Application: Russia's strategy often involves creating echo chambers by targeting specific communities with tailored disinformation. For example, conservatives and liberals may see entirely different narratives, and it solidifies their ideological divides. The result, in my opinion, conversations lack substance. We have all gotten into a feedback loop at times with certain beliefs, right? We see we see a social media post, you see the comments on it, you communicate with people that agree with you, or you get aggressive with those who don't, those with conflicting beliefs. You repost this information, you get within that community just reinforces your beliefs because you're all on the same page, right? But we're not hearing the other side. Moral panic. This is just kind of like an overarching one, but moral panic occurs when a society reacts to a perceived threat to its values or safety, often exaggerated by media and public discourse, because everybody wants a click, right? The application: Russian campaigns often aim to incite moral panics by highlighting controversial or emotionally charged issues. For example, immigration, crime, social justice movements. These panics distract from rational policy discussions and fuel political instability. A good question you could ask yourself is, well, a lot of the things that get blown up on the news, just how much of that had an intention, a separate intention behind it. That's a little suggestive, though. I don't know if I'll go with that. Don't listen to that. Example. So one of the first policies that has come up that I just recently heard about is Trump's merit-based immigration program. That is a big one, but it's a perfect example. You got the moral panic, you got the merit-based. Technological determinism. This is a interesting idea that definitely applies to now. The idea that technology shapes society and influences behaviors and perceptions. Its application: social media platforms like YouTube and Facebook, central to Russia's efforts. Their algorithms prioritize sensational or divisive content, inadvertently amplifying propaganda and disinformation. And in particular, for example, the recommended for you, right? And this influences that feedback loop as well. You're only getting what you like. You're only hearing what you want. How much time do we spend in bed just consuming trash? Just stuff that just enforces our beliefs. And yeah, it's that feedback loop. So, this is a huge one. Distrust in institutions. A decline in public trust in institutions, our government, media. It leads to social fragmentation and reduced civic engagement. The application: Russia's interference campaigns often target trust in democratic institutions, such as elections or law enforcement, by spreading false information about voter fraud or corruption. They erode confidence in the electoral process. Example: check this out. Something sad but true. This is an example. I wish that little box wasn't there, but it demonstrates the American and other countries, as you can see, their confidence in the justice system, the courts, and it's very sad. It's very sad where this has gone. We have made it where it's down 24 points as they rate it. It started, I think this was over 4 years, at 59, which already is not significant, but now it is down to 35. And that was 2017 to 2021. Where do you think it's at now? And a note on that, just kind of concluding some of that stuff. these are not overt actions. And by that, I mean like aggressive actions. It's a passive method and it works. And like, just think about how much passive aggression, like on a smaller level, like affects your personal relationships. You alter your behavior, you self censor and silence yourself to appease the other. And in reality, you can't wait to get the fuck out, right? GTFO. But you deal with it. Now, give me just 1 second. So, again, just to conclude on that point, you know, Russian propaganda, it thrives on deepening division, fueling distrust, and trapping us in echo chambers where democracy's confidence, continues to erode. By focusing on the intentions and tracking these patterns over time, like we can uncover these hidden themes that shape our society and try and take the first steps toward reclaiming our unity. The modern impact of propaganda is huge, right? It erodes social capital, it frays the trust and cooperation that binds our civil society, and disinformation has seeped so deeply into the political landscape that its normalization breeds cynicism. Who do you trust? But it also makes it harder to distinguish the truth from manipulation, media literacy, basically. This confusion, it fosters political apathy, it discourages voter participation and civic engagement. Meanwhile, you got heightened partisanship, which deepens divides. And this lack of collaboration, it's just horrible. It does nothing but continue to divide. So as like we navigate this reality, the challenge is to rebuild this trust, promoting media literacy among us and prioritizing unity to safeguard the foundations that we have built. Now, I know that that's a lot, right? And I think a lot of us don't want to believe just how much we can be influenced. But I have a picture that I'd like to share, a very, very well known picture. It is famous and for a good reason. It is during World War II. Where'd it go? Here it is. So, the reason why this is so significant, like at least when it comes to sociology, is because look at this. Again, context World War II. All of these people are saluting Hitler. And you have this one man who is choosing not to. And mind you, like that's dangerous, right? It's dangerous. Look at this crowd. We all think that we would be this person, right? But the truth is, we probably wouldn't be. And it's sad, but it's true. All of these people, they are just normal people like us, like our neighbors, right? And now they're completely aligned with something horrible. one of the things that I think is important, a little history on this guy, is he was married to a Jewish woman. And what's up? She likes dragonflies. Are you asking about what the topic is? But getting back to this guy right here, he was married to a Jewish woman. And due to the new Nuremberg laws that were enforced, they couldn't be together. They couldn't have kids, anything like that. Basically, their relationship was illegal. And I think it's important to consider that it took his personal experience, right? His personal experience to be able to empathize with the other side that has been targeted as the bad guy. And that bad guy, they weren't bad. They were just people. Other people, just like all of these people. But now they're the enemy. It's sad. It's very sad. But one of the biggest tricks when it comes to propaganda or media in general is to make that enemy a group. Because a group is an identity in itself, and it's one that's hard to personify with human characteristics. And so we begin talking about it as a group. We strip away that empathetic connection. But if we were to get on an individual level, sit down and talk to that quote unquote enemy, our perceptions would most likely change. Just a thought, but a very powerful, powerful picture. So, next, we can take a look at like some specific examples and just kind of do a quick little thematic analysis of what's kind of going on in our culture. And to do that, I got a very good modern day example, an example from one of the wonderful individuals who recently pled to be a victim for spreading Russian propaganda, even though they were making hundreds of thousands of dollars for some reason just out of nowhere. Isn't that a great deal? Pleading ignorance. Fantastic.